Okay, good afternoon. So now let us continue. So my assigned topic is about the American judicial system. So the American judicial system, it is in charge of deciding the meaning of laws, how to apply them to real situations, and whether a law breaks the rules of the Constitution. So ang Constitution di ay class is mo ni siya ang gitawag nato as the highest law of the nation. So, the US Supreme Court mo na siya gitawag og highest court in the United States. So, makonsider sad na siya as a part of the judicial branch. Now, the main task of the Supreme Court is to decide cases that may differ from the US Constitution. Kay ang Constitution man to no, ang gitawag nato as the highest law of the nation. So now, once the Supreme Court makes a decision in a case, it can only be changed, ma-change na siya by a later Supreme Court decision or by changing or amending the Constitution. So dapat i-amend pa ang Constitution in order to make changes. So this is a very important power that can affect the lives of many people. So the American judicial system decides the constitutionality of federal laws and resolves other disputes about federal. So as I have said, ang rule sa kanang judicial system is mauna siya ang mag-decide if nabasi ba sa mga clauses and provisions sa American Constitution ang laws nga naipasa. So what is the constitutional role of the judicial branch? Unsa man? It holds trials and decides cases. Again, it decides cases under the nation's laws. So the powers of the federal judiciary appear in Article 3 of the United States Constitution. So kanang gi-emphasize na nato ganihan no nga importante gyud ang Constitution since we highlighted Constitution here. So let me remind you that America adopted the Constitution in 1788. Now, let's proceed to Article 3 of American Constitution since naaman diri sa Article 3 makita nato kung unsa ang role ni judicial branch. So, according to the Constitution of USA in Article 3, Section 1, so, ang judicial power di ay sa United States, dapat it shall be vested in one Supreme Court. Dapat isa ra ka Supreme Court, dili pwede daghan. And in such inferior courts, as the Congress may from time to time order and establish. So, the judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, so shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. So, of course, kailangan tayo judicial branch, naman tayo ka ng mga court, so naapod tayo mga judges. And, pangutana, kinsa man ang magpili sa mga judges nga palingkuro nato sa judicial courts. So, kana nga pangutana ato nang matubag on the way sa ato ang discussion. So, let's proceed to section 2 in Article 3. It is said, the judicial power shall extend to all cases, so in law and in equity, arising under this Constitution. Since ang rule man sa kanang judicial branch is mag-protect ni siya sa kanang people or sa states in order to access o sa man equal rights, peace, and security. So, by the way, unsa di ay ng judicial power? So, when we say judicial power, so, it means that the Constitution gives the judicial power to Supreme Court. Kani di ay nga power comes from the Constitution. So, naagyud ta nag-base sa Constitution tanan. Kay, mo man siya ang foundation. Judicial power includes the power to hold trials, hear appeals, issue of habeas corpus, interpret laws, and review government conduct for compliance with the Constitution. By the way, unsa di ay ning kanang trials? When we say trials, no, kay kanang mo ni siya ang gitawag nato nga hearing or kanang bitong anha ka sa korte in which both parties sa subject o sa victim, so mag-hearing sila in order to present statements and objects. So what kinds of objects? It could be evidences to prove nga kanang kinsa ang sad-an or kanang kinsa ang guilty sa maong ng crime. And napadyo tayo term diri no basig dili mo makasabot kung unsa ni. So we have habeas corpus. So when we say habeas corpus, so let's proceed to section 2. So the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising this Constitution. So the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under their authority. So to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministries and consuls, to all cases admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between states and citizens of other state of another state, and between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizen thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. So, ani nga section di ay pakita kung unsa ang mga cases nga makater nato diri sa judicial branch. For the continuation of the section 2, so in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministries and consuls, katong mga kaso nga pwedeng mahitabo, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So unsa man di ay ning kanang jurisdiction? So when we say jurisdiction di ay, it is the power to what? Declare the law and when it ceases to exist. So the only function remaining to the court is that of announcing the fact and dismissing the cause. So mara siya si jurisdiction. In all the other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction. So both as to law and fact, which exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. The trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachment shall be by juries, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crime shall be have committed. Now, but when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. Like for example, ang crime na hitabo sa kanang state sa Texas, of course, ang crime adto pud siya dito sa kanang court sa Texas sulbaron. Okay, let's proceed to Article 3, Section 3. So, treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them, or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. So, no person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of two witnesses to the same overact or on confession in open court. So, unsa man dayong treason? Kani diayong treason, nag-refer na siya sa crime of betraying one's country. Walay tawo nga makonvict sa treason unless kung naay kanang duha ka tawo or nga mo witness nga mohatag og testimony mahitungod sa act of treason. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. So, dili pwede nga abi kay nakasala og treason, imo na labod siyang kanapatyon kay kanang naa na poy lahi nga case nga pwede nato nga mapasaka atong tawo nga nag-commit og pagpatay atong isa ka nakasala. So, now let's talk about the judicial process. Atong mabal-an diri kung unsaon man sa mga American people pag-access og justice or kung unsaon unsa ang proseso sa ilang hustisya dito sa ilahang lugar, pareha ba sad sa Pilipinas or lahi ang ilahang mga pamaan. The judicial process in the United States is being stated in Article 3. It is said that guarantees that every person accused of wrongdoing, katong mga nakasala, naa sila right to a fair trial before a competent judge and jury of one's peers. Like the Philippine Constitution, ang American Constitution sa di ay gina-amend na siya kadaghan, di lang kay katulo, but there are 4th, 5th, 6th, and up to 8 amendments di ay sa ilang Constitution para maka-provide sila og additional protections for those accused of a crime. And kani nag-include sa first. So, a guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So, same rasad sa ato na at mantay right niya ingani since we also copied the Constitution of United States. So, every American na sila right to live, so right of freedom, mao man gyud na ilang gipakadak niya. Tapos say right nga maka-access or maka-angkon og mga properties without the due process of law. Nag-include pa jud diha ang ilahang kana mga rights. So we have protection against being tried for the same crime twice or double jeopardy. So unsa day ning double jeopardy? Meaning nag-prohibit na nga ma-prosecuted ang isa ka tao kaduha nya pareha ra nga kaso. Ang criminal proceedings pwede na ato siya i-conduct under either state or federal law. So depending on the nature and extent of the crime. Kay ang criminal legal procedure man kay typically nagsugod gyud na siya with an arrest by a law enforcement officer. Of course, magamit kina silang mga pulis para mo arrest sa isa ka salarin. So, if a grand jury chooses to deliver an indictment, the accused will appear before a judge and be formally charged with a crime, and which time he or she may enter a plea. Also, dito sa Amerika, ang defendant sad gihatagan nila og time nga maka-review sa tanang mga ebidensya in the case and to build a legal argument. Then, ang kaso pod, it will be brought to trial and decided by a jury. Of course, ang attorney mo decide ana. Then, if the defendant is determined to be not guilty of the crime, the charges are dismissed. Otherwise, the judge determines the sentence, which can include prison time, a fine, or even execution. So, ako ang may example day anino kay nakoy ka ng silingan nga, gipasakan siya sa amorasad nga silingan o kaso nga rape. Kaya nga naman, pero para sa aning silingan nga laki, para niya wala siya ng rape kay ang ilang gibuhat nagsabot ra silang duha. Pero ang nahitabo is ang pamilya sa bae kanang dili gyud gusto nga kanang dili sila makaangkon og justice kay nagtuo sila nga gi-rape ang ilang kanang anak. Pero sinabutan na gud to nila. And then ang nahitabo ni file ang kanang ginikanan sa bae og kaso nga rape. So karon nalutsan na og search warrant. And then naay specific time nga gihatag ang atuang kanang court sa unsay may pangalan na? Okay ra. Sa pag-build ay sa paghatag og time sa kanang atong gi consider as subject katong lalaki aron nga ma-build niya ang iyang mga argument nga makapakita siya evidences kung tinuod ba gyud nga dili rape ang nahitabo. So puhon-puhon kung makatubang na sila sa court, so kanang mag-exchange na og mga kanang mga sentences or statements during the hearing. So during the trials dito sa kanang court, and then kanang kung mahibaw-an sa kanang jury kung kinsa ang kanang salarin, kung tinuod ba nga gi-rape niya or tinuod ba nga sinabutan nila, then kung ma-found out nga dili guilty ang lalaki, of course makalaya ang lalaki, dili siya mapriso. But kung ma-found out nga guilty ang lalaki, so mapriso siya unya, kanang i-determine sa judge kung unsa or pila ka tuig siya mapriso, kung pila ang kanang bail niya, kung bailable ba ni, or unsa ang iyang silot nga dangatan. Let's proceed to the federal system of the United States. So, the United States is a federal system with a central federal government and individual governments for each of the 50 states, since the U.S. has 50 statesmen. As with the other branches of government, each of the states has their own complete judicial system. So, kada state, 50 man to ka states, no? Kada state, naa siya state courts. So, as does the United States itself, federal courts. Although there are important differences between the federal courts and between the various state court systems. So, they do share some common characteristics po. Okay, first, let's talk about federal courts. So, what is federal courts? So, federal courts hear cases involving the constitutionality of law, cases involving the laws and treaties of the United States ambassadors and public ministries, disputes between two or more states, admiralty law, also known as maritime law, and bankruptcy cases. So, mo ni ang kanang gina-focus ni federal courts. So, the federal judiciary, nag-operate na siya separately gikan sa executive and legislative branches, but often works with them as the Constitution requires. Of course, kay mag-work together majuning tulo. Ang nagpasa di ay ani mga federal laws kay mao ang Congress. Dili mahimo ang isa ka balaod nga balaod kung dili siya sinaynan sa presidente. So, the judicial branch decides the constitutionality of federal laws and resolves other disputes about federal laws. So, however, judges depend on our government executive branch to enforce court decisions. Sa federal courts, naman gyud tay mga judges. So, kinsa man ang nag-appoint sa mga judges? Ang mag-appoint sa judges, way lain kundi ang President sa United States. So, karon kay si Joe Biden man ang president, si Joe Biden sad ang mag-appoint kung kinsa ang iyang palingkuron as federal judges. Together with the president's decision of appointing federal judges, so it must be also confirmed by a majority vote of the Senate. So, they serve for life. Mag-serve for life ni ang mga kanang federal court judges and may not have their salaries reduced. So, dako day grupo ni sila og kanang kuano sweldo, and may only be removed from office for serious offenses through the impeachment process. So, lisod po din ni sila kanang tangtangon sa ilang lingkuranan kay naa pa may impeachment process and only those serious offenses ang makatanggal lang nila. So, this requires impeachment by the House of the Representatives and conviction by a 2/3 vote of the Senate. Let's proceed to the types of federal court. First, we have Supreme Court in the United States of America. So, mani ang ato ang logo. As you see, our slide, mo na siya. Si Supreme Court, mo na siya ang highest court in the land. Labi na kay ang US, mo na siya ang pinaka-powerful country sa ato ang world nowadays. So, in Article 3 of the United States Constitution, it created the Supreme Court and nag-authorize sa Congress to pass laws establishing a system of lower courts. So, napad yung mga lower courts di ay. So, in federal court, systems present forms. So, there are 94 district-level trial courts ug na-appoint 3 SICA courts of appeals that sit below the Supreme Courts. So, ang main task sa Supreme Court class mo na ang mag-decide sa mga kaso that may differ from the US Constitution. Once the Supreme Court makes a decision in a case, kung makadesisyon na si Supreme Court, it can only be changed by a later Supreme Court decision or by changing or amending the Constitution. This is a very important power that can affect the lives of many people. Okay, the second type of federal court is the Courts of Appeals. So, what is Court of Appeals? So, sa Court of Appeals, na ay 3 SICA appellate courts that sit below the US Supreme Court. So, under din sa kanang US Supreme Court ni kanang Court of Appeals. And they are called the U.S. Courts of Appeals. So, the 94 federal judicial districts are organized into 12 regional circuits. No, natay gitawag og circuits. So, each of which has a court of appeals. Matag regional circuits di ay sa 12 ka regional circuit naa po na sa tagsa-tagsa ka court of appeals. So, the appellate court's task is to determine whether or not the law was applied correctly in the court. And appeals court consists of 3 judges and do not use a jury. Courts of appeals kay wala sila nagamit og jury. So, a court of appeals hears challenges to district court decisions from courts located within its circuit, as well as appeals from decision of federal administrative agencies. So, in addition, ang Court of Appeals side for the Federal Circuit has nationwide jurisdiction. Grabe, dako kailang jurisdiction, no? To hear appeals in specialized cases, so such as those involving patent laws and cases decided by the U.S. Court of the International Trade and the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Napatay daghang dapat hibaw-an kung unsa si Court of Appeals. So, sa under Court of Appeals, we have Bankruptcy Appellate Panel. We have 3 judge panels authorized to hear appeals of the bankruptcy court decisions. Kay kanang importante kaayo ni nga part maong daghan taog judge nga gamiton. So, tulo ka buok since it talks about bankruptcy. So, these panels are a unit of the Federal Courts of Appeals and must be established by katong sa circuit nato. There are 5 circuits that have established panels. So, first circuit, 6th circuit, 8th circuit, 9th circuit, and the 10th circuit. Next, we have district courts. So, money iyang kanang logo. So, the nation's 94 district of trial courts are called U.S. District Courts. So, distinct courts resolve disputes by determining the facts and applying legal principles to decide who is right. Trial court include the district judge who tries the case and a jury that decides the case. So, ang magistrate judges, muna siya ang nag-assist sa district judges para sa pag-prepare sa kaso for trial. So, they may also conduct trials in media minor cases. Okay. Ang district courts, so naay at least 1 district court di ay in each state. So, di ba kay 50 states man to ang USA, no? So, every state na ay district court. Each district includes U.S. Bankruptcy Court as a unit of the district court. Apil na day ana ang bankruptcy court. So, 4 territories of the United States have U.S. district courts to hear federal cases. Unsa man ni, kini nag-include sa bankruptcy cases sa Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, and the Northern Mariana Islands. Ang district court sad, naana siya 2 special trial courts. Napo siya 2 trial courts na special. So, the Court of International Trade, ang una, nga nag-address sa cases involving sa mga international trade and customs laws. Also, the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, nga nag-deal na siya sa most claims for money damages against the U.S. government. Third type of federal courts is bankruptcy courts. So, what is bankruptcy courts? One is siya ang federal court that have exclusive jurisdiction over bankruptcy cases involving personal, business, or farm bankruptcy. Modeng dato ang kanang kuano Amerika kay naaman siya sila court nga manage para matugunan ang bankruptcy sa ilang lugar. So this means a bankruptcy case cannot be filed in state court. Through the bankruptcy process, ang individuals or businesses that can no longer pay their creditors may either seek a court-supervised liquidation of their assets. They may recognize their financial affairs and work out a plan to pay their debts. Let's proceed to the 4th type of federal court. We have Article 1 courts. It is said Congress created several Article 1 or legislative courts that do not have full judicial power. wala dahil full judicial power ni si Article 1 Court. So kay, ang judicial power is the authority man to be the final decider in all questions of constitutional law. Okay. All questions of federal law enter here claims at the core of habeas corpus issues. Sa Article 1 courts, natay tulo ka klase. First, we have the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Veterans Claim. Second, we have U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. Where siya ang pag-focus sa ilang ka ng warfare dito sa ilang armed forces. And third is the U.S. Tax Court. Let's proceed to the check and balances performed by the judiciary branch dito sa United States. So, we have here first, the judicial branch does have the ability to check the legislative and executive branches. Rule po din na ni judicial branch no nga iyang i-check si legislative o si executive branches kanang just as those branches that check the judiciary. Kay kaniman sa si legislative ug si executive iya man po i-check si judicial branch para dili sila mag-overpower, para ma-maintain lang ang ilang power to kanang achieve balance. Kini ma-achieve nila through measures such as first, using judicial review in both the legislative and executive branches to make sure that laws are written and enforced constitutionally. So, second, si judicial branch or si Supreme Court and katong mga law courts, ang ilahasab nga mga papel is to check on the president. Kay dili pwede nga president ka, kay president ka, wala lang mo check nimo kay ikaw ang hawd. So, naa po di ay mo check nimo ang legislative ug ang executive. And this time, si judicial branch man ang ang topic, si judicial branch mo check sad siya on the president. So, iyang i-review ang mga executive acts, mag-perform sad siya checks on Congress, reviews congressional laws. Also, the judicial branch authorizes appropriates funds for legislation kay basin unya og kanang nay corruption nga mahitabo. So, kanang i-check jud na ni judicial branch. So, also it performs checks on the judiciary, can impeach and remove judges. Maka-impeach di ay o maka-remove judges mao ang judicial branch. So, also ang judicial branch nag-confirm og federal judges. So, those are the check and balances performed by the judiciary branch. Okay, so that's it. So, here are the sources of our report. And I hope nakasabot mo sa ako ang na-share. And that's all. Thank you and God bless.